Education debate in the Meklis I Membusan. The fight over the minds and spirit of the population has been vigorously fought over for the last couple of decades, and unrelenting pace of modernisation has also greatly affected this field. Started deep in the 19th century, the reforms have progressed in a steady progression over the years, mostly carried by the secularist movement. The OHF has continued this conflict through post-Weltkrieg, with the first participation of women in the higher education and official full co-education only a few years later, promoted by Sultan Vedettin. Nonetheless, the policy is finding it hard to be fully implemented on the ground, as heavy opposition from the conservative Ulama and the continued split in the various education systems makes any centralisation hard to accomplish. The Ottoman education system, consisting of three main branches, remains divided, even though the Idadi and Sultani, reformist schools established by the Tazmit reforms, have been united into one distinct curriculum: the madrasas, religious education. Oh, right, Madras, yeah. And the minority schools, protected by the Milliyat system, remain a thorn in the side of the Ministry of National Education. Long being a staple of the OHF, it has been detailed its plans to unite all three systems, place them directly under the ministry, and streamline the curricula to both promote social cohesion and make it more approachable to the common citizen. Over the last few years, primarily during their first tenure in 1927, massive strides were made towards accomplishing this goal, but the subsequent decentralist government of 1931 has overturned this policy once more in favour of education on the vilayet level, as such causing a divide in both the quality and accessibility of education depending on efforts of the wali. Now that the OHF is firmly back in the saddle, it has brought into the table as some of its designs the Co-Education and Unification Act, finally putting to law the full unification of education in the entire realm and the forced co-education of male and female. The party has found itself up against the wall of conservative forces founded by the powerful Sufi lodges in an attempt to prevent their own power over the government to fade. Okay. How are we doing for resistance? Oh. Totally sorted. Except for you, which is going to need a bit more strict. So Saranasia is the problematic one. Down here. You might even be able to go down to civilian oversight. Oh, these two must be vilayets, whereas this one isn't. So the magic number here is 25. Resistance target right now is 25, but as compliance goes up, that target should decrease. Your target is still really sodding high, but that's mostly because you're still waiting for equipment, which I should have been checking on. We're not building aircraft, these are old. We'll finish this one ship and then we'll switch to something else. And I'm not going to bother making artillery right now, we're just going to focus fully on weapons. And I think I am going to spend a convoy getting some steel in, because we do need those guns. And in fact, there's no point having the military governor if we literally can't do that. So we'll go back to secret police, which hopefully will actually reduce the resistance strength. Nope, it's going up. We'll leave it at martial law. The Totalist Charter, Mussolini, Valois, Ultramare and other interested parties arrived in Birmingham today to discuss their common ground. It has been agreed that Marxism, Sorelianism and National Syndicalism all share basic principles of the state primacies and the socialist struggle, the role of the national identity within the state and the importance of a strong central authority to preserve and build socialism. Edward VIII has been crowned as the King of Great Britain. George V, the last King of Great Britain and Ireland to have ruled the Home Isles themselves, has passed while in exile in Canada. The first Windsor King, his reign shall be remembered with sorrow and sadness, as during it Britain lost both Weltkrieg and its homeland. The crown was inherited by Edward, Prince of Wales, who now styles himself as Edward VIII. No, the D&D games will be streamed on this channel. Again, if it takes off, then we may well try to split it out into its own thing. Just because D&D versus what I usually do is fairly different. And I think it would work better that way. The Madrasas fight back against the OHF. A petition signed by the 300 Ulama from across the Empire reached the desk of the Grand Vizier earlier this week, as the nearing vote on the Co-Education Unification Act is stirring up commotion throughout the nation. Nonetheless, there is no united opposition to the Act, as even within the Ulama themselves, many are seeing the benefit of centralised education, with some openly expressing their support for the Act. So social conservatism has gone up, which is the IMF. Which I'm guessing is, yeah, it's not the International Monetary Fund. It's the Ilathat-i Mohammadi Friksaki, the Mohammedan Union Party. And there it is, the vote. After the World Krieg, as the British Raj collapsed into turmoil and warfare, the neighbouring kingdom of Afghanistan took advantage of this as an opportunity to seize Peshawar and Quetta, both border regions of the Dominion. Who cares about Afghanistan? Expand the education. Including the controversial Co-Education Unification Act, the Meclis-i-Mebusan Chamber of Representatives was presented today with a wide variety of decrees and plans by the modernist OHF. As the OHF has a majority in the House after the 1935 electoral success, many are worried that the Sultan may yet interfere in the Meclis-i-Ayan, the Senate, whose members are almost entirely appointed by the Padishah himself. Known for being a devout Muslim and sharing many conservative tendencies of the opposition, the Sultan has kept himself absent from the political process ever since his ascension 10 years ago, either because of a general apathy or as some whisper out of a fear of what happened to Abdul Hamid II may yet happen to him as well. With the future of the religious education through the madrasas now on the line, however, many expect the Caliph of Islam to finally take a stance against the secularists. So we can say that the law is passed, which will increase the popularity of authoritarian democracy. Or Meclis-i-Ayan shuts it down. Co-Education Unification Act will fail. Failure to push through it could have severe consequences. Could have. So the question here is, do we want to stick with the authoritarian Democrats, which is Kemal Ataturk, or do we want to perhaps go with a more centralised authoritarian state? More Islamist state, which would be the Meclis-i-Ayan shuts it down. You know, I think that this is a good opportunity to bring in a poll. We'll make this just a 1 minute. Law passed versus Meclis-i-Ayan shut it down. 1 minute. This is going to be influenceable. I have a feeling that the Ottoman government at this point was fairly corrupt. So here we go. Do we want to see the ruin of the nation or not? Get your votes in. Vote, vote, vote. Yeah, but this isn't liberals versus authoritarians. This is authoritarians versus monarchists. The liberals don't get a say in this one. Okay, so IR Charlie put in 6,000 channel points. Thank you very much for doing that. Meclis-i-Ayan has shut this down, failed, with 32% of the vote, which does mean that the law does go through with 68. The law is passed. Alright, so now we can do the Judicial Commission or replace the Penal Code. I feel like we should probably do the Judges and then the Penal Code. Although we could do the Penal Code and then bring in judges who are more expert in how the Penal Code works. No, I think we're going to do the Judicial Commission first. As the Ottoman Civil Code is based on the Sharia in the shape of the Mesel, many of the reformers have been attempting to replace it with a modernised secular variant. An attempt at doing so was started in 1930, but the electoral defeat in 1931 forced the OHF to reevaluate its position. Now the party is back in charge, it seems only natural to push it once more. Whilst the current penal code serves us well, the Grand Vizier has been enticed by reforms enacted in the Italian Republic. It not only provides us with a better and modernised code, but also includes special clauses targeting political dissidents such as the syndicalist movement, which seems like a useful tool to the administration. Yeah, we'll do the judges first. Electoral gridlock in France? The Commune of France is the world's leading syndicalist nation, united as a federation of city communes and directed by the Comité de Salut Public, the chief executive. Ever since its inception, however, the second commune was not uniform in its policy. Numerous factions arose, each one with their own idea of which path France should take. It was so important, in fact, that none of the four factions could acquire a majority, much like before the election. A coalition must be found, but how will this change the shape of the commune's policies? Only the men in the CSP itself know. On the 3rd of February 1936, the Berlin Stock Exchange stopped sinking. It plunged. Fueled by the instability, the market panic, selling erupted as soon as the market opened on Monday morning. It took well into the night for the teleprinters to stop sputtering out the results of what became known as Black Monday. When the results had been analysed, it was clear the situation had only got worse. Mein Gott! The Grand Vizier speaks to the international press. Actually seems like a really early Black Monday. But no, it must always be there. The Grand Vizier speaks to the international press, speaking to the editors of both Constantinople and the international papers. The Grand Vizier has given a statement in the success of the vote in the expansion of the ministry. The decision taken by the Ottoman Parliament today in what the nations wanted, naturally and genuinely. There is no need to look at it as something extraordinary. Showing off the stock of letters he had received from intellectuals all over the empire, the Pasha has once again shown to the international press that people stand behind him. Whether or not this is actually the case is left vague, and the opposition papers are already describing vividly how this is an affront to the proud traditions of our state. A great success for the Ottoman nation. Gain stability. I'm not going to say no to that. 406 Mob wants me to drink some tea. Hey, Charlotte. Ataturk Gang represent. Thank you very much for the 10 month resubscription. Very much appreciate that. Thank you for the ongoing support. I feel Germany recover way too fast from Black Monday. I agree. Like, the old German focus tree I think was a lot better for that. I mean, admittedly, part of the problem here is I am playing with the enhanced focus times, but that enhances everyone's focus times. So everyone is still recovering at the same speed, just like 2 years quicker. Actually, even with the focuses thing, the war usually starts in 41. That must mean that the war usually starts in like 43. Oh, that makes the tech issue even worse. Anton Sadeh publishes The Genesis of Nations. A journalist from Beirut is making shockwaves in the Syria Vilayet with his romantic view on the Greater Syria free of Ottoman rule. Taking inspiration from the ancient Assyrian Empire and a return to the Fertile Crescent of old, he pleads for a nation spreading from the Suez Canal to the south to the Tarsus Mountains in the north, from Kuwait to the east to Cyprus in the west. Though a survival of a nation consisting of such a massive amount of different ethnicities and religions seems a bit of a fairy tale, the man not only follows closely the Kemalist ideal of a secularist state, but also inspiration from the syndicalist powers that are apparent as well, with a focus on abolishing feudalism, nationalising vital areas of the economy, mandatory education and universal healthcare. Even though its popularity amongst the Syrian people seems rather low for now, the governor of Beirut has ordered his arrest, and the man has been imprisoned for treason against the state and instigating revolutionary ideas. Beirut unrest increases. tech issue is that this game always seems to last a lot longer than vanilla. So it will frequently go into 47, 48, 49, and there just isn't the tech tree to cover that. Not that it starts earlier, so it goes on later. Poland declares the Republic. After several high-profile terror attacks in Poland and the near-total collapse of their economy, a large group of high-ranking Polish officials have released a statement declaring the creation of a new Polish Republic. The declaration was met with immediate declarations of support from the many government branches, and it appears the Republic has taken control of most of the country with almost no bloodshed. The Regency Council, the former ruling authority in Poland, has been dissolved, and the question of the next Polish king left forever unanswered. The people have rallied around the new Republic, and the country's new future appears bright. The Austrian Empire withdraws from Italy. It is clear that Black Monday has hit the Austrian Empire hard. The Austro-Hungarian Reichskrieg minister today announced that he was recalling divisions stationed in Italian territory, unable to afford the financial burden of keeping them safe from the Socialist Republic of Italy. World War II, time gate at least if it's over Alsace-Lorraine. Pretty sure it's not. Not in this. The League of Eight Provinces declared war on left Kuomintang. Samsun Ikisat Kongressi. Crisis, chaos, disaster. All across the world, economists and business owners are in a state of panic as the unthinkable finally happened earlier this week, when the Berlin Stock Exchange collapsed. Similar to Berlin, Constantinople was on high alert for any changes to the situations they watched the economy collapse into the ground. Nonetheless, there is far less of a crisis in the empire than many initially expected, as the protectionist nature of the empire during the 1920s has formed the foundation of a structure capable of resisting most shocks to the global market. To ensure the fears of the private sector are quelled and to outline the next 4-year plan envisioned by the OHF's economic partners, a second economic congress is planned to be held in the city of Samsun on the Black Sea, Samsun Ikisat Kongressi, combining both projects from the private sector and showcasing the advance of the Turkish economy over the last few decades. It not only serves as a way to calm down the Ottoman investors, but also a showcase of the modernising Ottoman nation to the world. So we lose 20% stability. We get economic depression, which is consumer goods, construction speed and factory output. And we finish the Samsun Ikisat Kongressi. Which, yeah, makes these available now. But I think we want to continue doing reforms. Can check the demand Alsace-Lorraine focus for France. Pretty sure it can't be done before early. Yeah, it can't be done before early 39. What I'm saying is it doesn't automatically fire in 39, which is what I thought you were saying. It's just that it has to be 39 or later. Yeah, after 39. It's not an event of fire saying you are now out of war, like Black Monday. Marshal Wu Faifu backs Anqing. Following the death of Marshal Sun Chunfang earlier this year and the subsequent collapse of the Qing authority, few expected Imperial Minister of the Army, Wu Faifu, the real power behind the throne in Beijing, to take overt military action. Yet this morning he and the Assembly President Cao Kun announced their formal support to the provisional government of Anhui, led by Chen Qiaoyun. Wu and Cao have long chafed under the German oversight placed on their government in 1927, and their support of Governor Chen telegraphed to the world they are casting off the German influence. Play as Egypt, can you get Sadat as leader? Don't know, it's a long time since I played as Egypt. In fact, one thing, do I want to do this? I was thinking we should probably train our troops. But I'm not convinced that we actually have the resources to do so. Especially because what I was actually trying to look at was this. We do actually have the equipment for oversight now. Yeah, you guys are all fine. So resistance is not going to be causing us any major problems. I've actually got very, very good anti-resistance issues. You know what? Let's do it. Let's train. And let's also start bringing in some commanders. So do we want Osman Foda Efendi or Fezvi Pasha? Fezvi Pasha has less penalties to experience gain, which he has. So it's really a question between defense and offense. So I think we'll put Pasha in charge of the main force. Mountaineer specialist, so Fahrettin Pasha is a Desert Fox, but he's old guard, so we're going to ignore him. Nafiz Pasha. He is pretty good. We have a cavalry expert, actually. And an artillery specialist. And quite a few war heroes. In fact, everyone in this army is a war hero. With the exception of these guys. Yeah, there's only 2 characters that are not a war hero. Anyone know if Turkey has a tree with a new update? I don't, actually. I would kind of hope they would, because Turkey appearing is quite frequently the case. So I think that Fahrettin Pasha can be put in charge of our cavalry. Then the infantry... Well, actually, let's put the artillery commander as Nuri Pasha. Although he does have an experience reduction. Like, these two are just better. Although I actually quite like the idea of putting Nafiz Pasha as the Mountaineer commander. Then the artillery can be the artillerists. Actually, the Mountaineers should probably be the Mountaineer guy. That's probably a better idea. I just really dislike politically connected. So we'll give you the Desert Fox, and we'll give you the infantry commander. Although I'm also somewhat tempted to put this guy in charge. He's got better planning, he's a level lower, so he can still improve. And he starts out as an engineer, which gives him that extra little oomph towards... Ah, but you're just better at fighting. Now we'll go Kate. You can learn engineer. Okay, done. Restoration of democracy in Australasia. The Australasian Confederation has been under the authoritarian rule of Governor-General William Birdwood since the British invocation of the emergency protocols in 1924. Considered by many in the nation to have been a heavy-handed response to the Melbourne Commune syndicalist uprising, Birdwood finally relented to calls for an open election, leading to the unexpected result of Stanley Bruce's United Australasia Party achieving a majority government in the Canberra Parliament. Bruce is expected to have a tough time ahead of him, with Labour unrest on the rise and calls for a reunification of Birdwood's more egregious restrictions on personal liberty. Renovation of the Topkapi Palace completed. The former imperial residence of the House of Osman, Topkapı Palace, was ordered in 1959 by Mehmed the Conqueror. As the centuries dragged on, however, the sultans and their households preferred other residences on the Asian side of the Bosphorus, leading to the court moving over to the Dolmabahce Palace. Nonetheless, retaining some of its former functions, such as the imperial treasury, the palace was finally emptied in 1927 after the death of Mehmed VI a year earlier. Sultan Abdülmecid II, a patron of the arts and a famous artist himself, subsequently granted the grounds to the Ottoman state for use as a museum and art exposition. Closed for almost 8 years, the buildings were thoroughly renovated and restored in an attempt to once more show the splendour of the Ottoman Empire and hopefully rekindle the old Ottomanist spirit. Open to the splendid party and the Enderun, the old Sultan himself presented a multitude of his own works and various masterpieces of contemporary Ottoman art to the gathered world press. The Saray-i Sadid-i Amir shines once more. The civil code we have used since the Tanzimat era, or the Mesel Code, was first codified in 1877. Based on the Islamic Hanafi legal tradition, the code was the first enforcement of unified law all over the Ottoman citizens who previously, according to the Miliyat system, used their own codes. For decades, this code has remained mostly unchanged and in the eyes of many still an ancient relic of a bygone era. As it is based on Islamic law, many of the reformists have protested against it as they feel the religious law has no place in a modern secular state. Christian and Jewish citizens who previously used their own legal system remain discontent with it as well, and have urged the government to reform it if not outright replace the dated code. Mustafa Kemal, who is likewise averse to non-secular character, has thus opened a debate on the exploration of a legal reform and continued to formed a committee tasked with investigating possible judicial reform. Consisting of ulama, administrative personnel and Ottoman representatives of all the millets, the committee will hopefully find a solution agreeable to all parties involved and shall present their findings as soon as possible. Another step for the reformists. The death of Pius XI. All of Christendom mourns the death of His Holiness Pope Pius XI, who died following a heart attack after having been in declining health for the past several years, something which rapidly worsened following Black Monday. Arthur Horner, elected chairman of the TUC. 1936 Trade Union Congress in the Union of Britain was made out to be decisive. Long-time chairman of the TUC, Philip Snowden, declared his resignation, causing the four major factions in the Union, the Maximists, the Autonomists, the Federationalists, and the Congregationalists, to butt heads over the position. As the dust settled, Arthur Horner, the current General Secretary, has been chosen as Snowden's successor. He and his Federationists are in favour of keeping the status quo, a position getting harder and harder to maintain in this changing world. The Ottoman Party for Administrative Centralization is making increasing waves in the Mashriq as a variety of parties in the Greater Syria region are absorbed into their organisation. Although a similar hand was reached out to the Arab parties in Iraq, this offer was politely declined for fear of increasing Damascene influence amongst the Arab movement and was seen as counterproductive to the ultimate goal of Arab autonomy. They're only making themselves a bigger target. OPAD is not in this list.